yet.
Cool.
Sorry.
I mean, we could.
Well, I know, but then I have to go back and do it. Can you delete that square? Welcome, Facebook Live. We are trying something different, and I hope it's not blowing out your speakers yet. So
yeah, you've probably noticed that it's a lot clearer this week, which is really exciting. And we'll get into why we have a kind of a new setup with our mics, and we got a mixer and everything. I mean, it's looking like a true studio, which is very, very exciting. So with episode 77 coming into play tonight and being here, and we appreciate everyone tuning in. We appreciate the people that was able to kind of sponsor us and allow us to be able to do this. So, but we'll get into that once we hit the audio portion of the podcast, right?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing right now is that I'm trying to focus on, when this first part before we do the audio, I've got a headphone in trying to listen to myself. It sounds pretty good, I think. I mean, anyone out there, I know we got about 6 people. We're trying not to be super awkward talking into microphones, but
I think we're
going to be super awkward talking into microphones.
There's 6 people on here, and there's 4 of us watching.
That's right. I saw Todd Gordish on there. So
yeah, I mean, it's good to see Todd. I mean, this would be good for the people that actually want to watch it in the shop.
Right.
Like those weeks that I wasn't on and watched it in the shop. And
Todd says it sounds awesome, so
it's great.
We'll see what we can do here.
Todd, put it on the tinderbox.
If we get faded out, let us know.
Yes.
And I'm listening to a headphone on about a 5-second delay, so it's completely fucking with me. So let's go ahead and start the audio and just jump right in.
Cool.
I say
that's exciting. I like it when we do that. Ready, Nate?
He was listening on a delay also.
I know. Wait, let's try it. Let's see if it works on a mic. Oh, wait. All right.
I don't know which headphones he has on right now.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Barely.
Happy Whiskey Wednesday, folks. I'm Jake Sanders along with Steve Crane, and we make up the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 77, and we are in Steve's Garage 2.0. The studio's coming together. We got mics.
We do have mics. The studio really hasn't changed at all, but we've got a bit more of the the sound equipment. So
the fact that Nate just told you to move up the mic and you did, it's just like that's more professional than we've ever been since.
Yeah, now we've got a whole studio team. You know, you got first time around we got Nate that's going to be on the sound, the mixer, and all that stuff. We got Dustin manning the Facebook feed as well as sometimes probably maybe checking other volume levels. I don't know. We've got so many volume levels. I've got my own headphones if I want to hear as well on the iPad up here.
Like I said at the beginning.
And we want to make sure that the GarageBand is actually coming through as well, which is another thing that we're looking at, the GarageBand, which is what we record the audio on to see if the sound waves are doing all right. So it's a fucking mess.
We're working out the kinks, man. But
I'm going to light my cigar. You go ahead if you want.
This is showing progress.
It's certainly showing that there's effort being involved. I will say, and I put it on Instagram and everything else, is that we want to thank for the microphones that we're using right now, and again, we apologize if we get the front doors open there.
Rob's here.
We've got a live studio audience now, so
yes, and he's doing push-ups. I love it.
Reach between your legs and ease the seat back. I don't want to do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that, Sean Hurley. I don't know if that's an innuendo for something. But, yeah, I want to thank Spencer Lappin, who's been on the podcast before.
We want to thank Spencer Lappin.
I'm sorry, yes. We want to thank Spencer Lappin of the Lappin Group and also from the Bourbon and BS podcast. He purchased the microphones, got the ball rolling, really kind of pushed us to use some of the sponsorship dollars and really look into how to make the audio on the podcast listeners sound good. A little bit better, but really it was the Facebook and the video that we've been actually getting the most traction from. So that was getting all the ball rolling. We did the research. We found out we had to buy.
And putting that all together is a massive coordination of wires.
Yeah,
if you could see this shit.
So, and I'm sure there's more intense type of setups, but I mean, basically what this does is that we've got microphones going into a mixer board. The mixer board is then also fed through a USB to my laptop, which Nate is also monitoring, and that's going to be through a USB to go to GarageBand, which is what, if you're listening to any of the audio stuff, it is being recorded by that. If you are by chance listening on Facebook Live or YouTube on the video, and the sound is quite a bit better, and hopefully not blowing out your speakers, hopefully not, we'll try to tweak it a bit more, but it's definitely better than what it's been, and that's being fed from the mixer board into something called an iRig HD.
I didn't realize you were going to go through this whole thing.
I just think it's pretty cool. And then it's going through another piece of equipment that then will charge the phone and also portray all that. So I know I was banging my head against the internet, basically trying to find out all this stuff. Nate had some experience with this, and it's good that he had that, the lead-in, and then a lot of YouTube videos and bulletin boards or whatever you call them now, whatever the kids call them. And then get it all together. And so that was utilizing some of the sponsorship dollars from Altadis. So
yeah,
long time coming. They've been a believer since the beginning. So it's fantastic. It's fantastic. So I want to go through it just because if anyone has any questions about this and you are listening to it on anything and you're trying to start up, because we do get contacted by other people that are trying to do podcasts from different industries. And I think this is something that's important. It's part about sharing and giving people the content to actually keep doing what they want to do, whether it be learning about cigars, whether they want to be learning about bourbon or talking about the life topics, or if they have questions about doing actual podcasts. I mean, I think it's important.
Yeah, no, it is. And we appreciate everyone that's tuning in, and we hope that you enjoy this work of art that we've created tonight and moving forward. And we thank Nate and Dustin for being here and moving forward as well. So if this is the first time that you have tuned in to the Bourbon MBS podcast, we are glad that you're here. We talk about whiskey, we talk about cigars, and we talk about life, and that spans from all different aspects. So we hope we give a little value to you while we're talking about the life, and hope you learn something that maybe you're passionate about whiskey or cigars. So thank you to our sponsors again. Spencer, thank you, Tinderbox at Easton, for providing the LFD Reserva Especial. Thank you, Altadis, our main sponsor, and we're hoping to re-up that again, and with Romeo and Julieta Reserve. And we've had that on a couple times, and it is a good cigar. I'm excited about this blend. And then we are also always proud and honored to have BS Cigar Company, Brian and Steve. I got a BS Silver here, and we're waiting on the BS Golds to come here soon.
Yeah, actually, I smoked 2 more blends that are prototype blends from this time from Plasencia Tobacco. So the Plasencia factory is actually, they sent us 2 blends, and I got to tell you, it's definitely getting closer. So we're getting some progress.
It's awesome.
I
was hearing your notes today, and it sounded good.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Yeah. No, I'm excited as well.
Yeah. And we also have the Sanders My Cheap blend tonight. We've been talking about trying to figure out different ways or different things to try things around the whiskey realm. And, I kind of thought about maybe making our own blends. There's kind of a trend out there going right now where some of the whiskey groups are also having the same kind of issue when they're doing content, and what they're doing is they're mixing stuff and doing stuff that they think that sounds good or maybe tastes good. Sometimes it turns out well, sometimes it don't. So I hope that the guys and everyone listening to this are able to try the blends. Do it for yourself once we get into it, but I hope that these guys like it. I was kind of testing it out before, so I kind of know what it tastes like, but I'm excited to hear what you guys think.
How much were you testing it out before is my question.
No, I just had 1 drink, so
okay.
Yeah, so yeah, and we'll get into that later, but
no, it's funny you're talking about the fact you're mixing these together as I'm sharing it to like Tri-State Bourbon aficionados. I realized I hadn't even shared this to some of the groups that listen.
Yeah.
And we're already over double digits, so that was cool. But
no, it's great.
Yeah.
And most of the time that Steve does the sharing while I'm doing the intro, so we encourage you to do the same, whether you're listening to it or watching it on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening to it from. Please share it, and please tell a friend. This is how we're going to grow this thing, and that's how we believe that is the best way to do it, and we appreciate it, man. The last week was 64, and 64 shares on Facebook, and I think that is hitting a really big threshold and record. I mean, I
don't think that's a record, Dustin. I think we were over 64 at the end of a recording. It was like way up, I thought.
The record?
90?
91.
91.
Yeah.
Last week?
No, 64. I think it was one of the weeks you were gone.
Oh, really? That figures.
Yeah, right.
What's great about this, Rob, is that we can't hear you now.
That's it.
And we have fans on. I mean, my God, like it's really exciting. It's very exciting. So thank you, Spencer, and thank you, Altadis, for the sponsors. Man, this is awesome. It's kind of like a revamp, almost, Steve.
It's like we put training wheels back on the big boy bike after we mastered the big wheel.
So we went. Okay, yeah.
Does that? I mean, I think a metaphor was there. I mean, I think. All right. So what? I liked my big wheel. I had the Knight Rider big wheel. It was pretty badass.
Did you ever have a remade Stingray, or were you too old by the time those came back out? Or did you have an original?
The car?
Stingray? No, the bikes.
No. What? No.
Really?
I just had a Huffy or something.
It's a nice Huffy, boy.
Yeah, that's right. I can't remember if it was me or my brother that we had a Smurfs. We had a Smurfs big wheel first, and then ruined it.
Were they like? Let me ask this question about the Smurfs. Were they like wrapped around the pole?
Like not lives? No,
or
dead
was it just
Smurfs
faces?
were not on there. There was actually just stickers of Smurfs.
I know, but were they like, because bike frames are very thin?
It's a big wheel. Do you know what a big wheel is?
Yeah, it's like a Stingray.
What the fuck is a Stingray?
Do you guys not know what a Stingray is?
No.
Please look it up. Please,
All right,
Rob.
anyone out there listening?
Look it up.
No. Stingray is an
bike.
animal or a Corvette.
No, it's not.
A big wheel, maybe
bicycle.
Stingray might be the actual. It's like a knockoff. Like Big Wheel's a brand, so it's like Kleenex. So like, are you riding around on Puffs?
I just
Like,
want to see
no
Rob's
one
face
fucking
when he
got
sees
Puffs.
this
Puffs
shit.
are like too much. Anyways, this is derailing really quick.
It's perfect.
Big Wheel is a big wheel.
So we're going to be talking about shooting it straight tonight.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
What's a Stingray?
Yes, for God's sakes, yes. And
No, we're talking about like
look
when
at the
you
old
were like
ones.
just like done finishing.
Look
walking,
at like 70s,
the big wheel.
80s, like.
Yeah, dude. I don't know what hood you grew up in,
Hey,
but
I didn't.
I mean,
He was in the country. Does that count? And we're getting some thanks. Look, your mom's. Mom says it's a Schwinn Stingray.
Yeah. Okay, Schwinn. I messed
So
up.
is that? I think that's beyond. That's after the big wheel.
No, but there's
yeah, that's way after Big Wheel.
not
Yeah,
the
big
newer
wheel.
ones. Look at the older ones. Look at like 70s, 80s, 60s. Schwinn Stingrays.
I'm. Did you? All right. So
The Roadster.
How cool is that?
It's Big Wheel-ish. Yeah,
It looks like an old.
let
It
me
looks.
ask you this: does it have the front end of Kit? Or does it is
no,
it stickered up with
no.
General Lee, which they couldn't make today?
But it looks
obviously,
like an
but
old
I'm saying,
Triumph
we had the
cafe
General Lee as
racer.
well.
That's what it looks like. It's awesome.
Did it have a handbrake?
No.
Oh, well, shit.
The one that my dad did. We still have it. I tried to make it like real nice. Anyways,
I'm sure it was great. I think it's a great gift.
beautiful machine.
It's a beautiful. Shooting it straight. No, I'm just actually. It had a headlight and a brake light. John Belly. No, it didn't. It had headlights, but they were stickers as well. I don't know if the Schwinn Stingray had it. All right, let's talk
amazing.
about
It's amazing. Shooting it straight, huh? The value in shooting it straight.
the General Lee big wheel was pretty badass too. But that was the best part about the big wheel. You just
Was
start
the
hurling
seat-
yourself down a hill, and then you just hit the handbrake, and it just like spins out until you spin out too hard and you flip.
Damn.
But then you would like also hold the handbrake and like pedal like you're doing a burnout basically.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
And then you like basically crack that front tire because it's not rubber on there; they're just plastic. There's fucking gravel all stuck up in there. Everyone, I think.
This is great.
What are we drinking?
Episode 77. Jake's Poor Man Blend. That's what we should have
Got
said.
like 18 names
Yeah,
already.
AKA Cheap Blend, AKA
John Belly had a Thundercats big wheel, which is badass too.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. So getting into the whiskey tonight. So I blended Heaven Hill, regular Heaven Hill that you can get in Ohio. They went away from the 6-year bottled and bond, but they're bringing back the 7-year here shortly, and I'm hoping that that's what Heaven Hill is sending us. They're supposed to be sending us a care package, and it's going to be really, really exciting when they do. I just got in touch with Emily a week or so ago, and she said that it should be here in the next month or so.
Nice.
So we'll see what happens.
Very nice.
But so Heaven Hills in Bardstown, Kentucky, we've had a lot of different things that come from Heaven Hill, beside the bottle and bond, the 6-year bottle and bond that was just in Kentucky that, like I said, is gone now. But anyway, so this is not bottle and bond, regular Heaven Hill. One thing that I did see that was interesting that I've never noticed on these bottles before is on the neck it says age 36 months. Never seen that before. See it? It's just in like black writing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why not 3 years?
I don't know.
You think it sounds better, I guess.
But it's 40%.
36 months older.
So 80 proof. Old style bourbon. And then we have Wild Turkey 101, which there for a while, that was like Steve and I's go-to for probably a year or so ago.
I think you just had 4 bottles and we're just like, yeah, I'm drinking this because everything else is rare. So you're just like, hey, I brought over that 101 again. It's like, oh, cool, man. That was great.
There's 3 bottles that Steve and I hop back and forth, and what it used to be, it was Buffalo Trace, Four Roses Small Batch, or Wild Turkey 101. Most of the time, I was the one that picked up Wild Turkey 101.
I think every time.
Yeah, probably.
It was probably every time.
I like Wild Turkey products. It's great.
There's no reason not to. I think it's very good.
But anyways, so Wild Turkey, obviously, Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. We talked about them before, Eddie and Jimmy Russell. But so what I did was the thought process here, what I was thinking about is, so at 40%, 80 proof with the Heaven Hill, it's very mellow. And here's a great example with the Heaven Hill. A lot of people ask about what's the difference that makes Jack Daniel's and Tennessee whiskey different from bourbon. And a lot of people say, it's between the different charcoal filterings or whatever, that's their signature. Mm-hmm. Well, here you have a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey at 80 proof. And guess what? It's charcoal filtered. So they're the same fucking thing. They're the same thing. It's just a different license that the government gave them, meaning Jack Daniel's. But anyways, so this is a charcoal filtered Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Very mellow, very smooth. That's where the charcoal filtering comes into play. I don't know the exact blend or mash bill, but so what I was thinking is this is so mellow that the Wild Turkey 101 is very spicy, not very spicy, but has a lot of oak features, a lot of vanilla, enough spice to it that it's going to pump up this smoothness of the Heaven Hill. So what I did is I did 2 parts Heaven Hill, 1 part Wild Turkey. I tried it first in a glass, and you guys can do this at home if you'd like with anything that you just play around with it. But that's what I did. And then once I had it, I pretty much used the bottle as the same kind of measurement. So the bottle, this liter decanter that my mom had sitting in our house that I freaking love because it's actually got a real cork on it, which you don't really see. But I used the bottle as the measuring thing. So I, did 2/3 Heaven Hill, and the last third was Wild Turkey 101. It's about the same as what I expected. I thought that, well, I'll let you guys taste it and see what you think before I say anything. But
of your concoction,
yes. So
John Belly says, if you drink enough of either, they will put you to sleep all the same. That is
not with
goal.
everyone.
Well, right.
Some people get cracked out, and some people get sleepy. So it's either way.
I gotta say, all right, go over it again because I'm kind of.
I know you.
I'm like assistant producer here as well.
Yeah,
so.
I know. Nate's got it, don't he?
I mean, he's saying you need to speak up a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So
thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
You sound good on the Facebook, which is the live feedback that we're getting right now. But he's trying to monitor for.
Am I okay if I'm on the side of the mic here, or do I have to be direct?
He had to be more direct, I think.
Okay.
But
that's fine.
I mean, overall, you sound good on Facebook. So
Great.
Go over one more time for the listeners at home in case I didn't, if they weren't paying attention because they were trying to figure out the audio on their podcast,
or just watching you,
or watching me, kind of do,
what the hell is that guy doing?
They should know. But you have how many parts to how many parts? So you giving that away? Did you already give that away?
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
2-1.
2-1 Heaven Hill?
So 2/3 Heaven Hill, 1/3 Wild Turkey.
Yeah.
In a 1 liter bottle. So, I mean, you can do that in the same thing in a just regular glass, like you can do 2 shots to 1 shot or whatever. 2 ounces to 1 ounce. Don't matter.
I don't know. I mean, Dustin, Nate, are you guys drinking this? I mean, I think it actually tastes pretty good. It actually softens up the Wild Turkey 101, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think it softens it up quite a bit, actually.
For me, a little too much.
I didn't get any plum.
I hate you. I hate you, Rob.
What is
Rob says plum because he still remembers I had it.
You never had Wild Turkey 101? I think it's got a bit more burn.
Try it. I mean, I know it's kind of hard now. We have wires everywhere, but no. And that was kind of what I was going for. I think that if I would to do this again, it would be if I would break this liter bottle up into like fourths or just halves. I would just do 1/2 Heaven Hill and 1/2
Try one half,
Wild Turkey.
1/2.
Yeah,
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Old Forester up front, and then Russell's Reserve on the back.
Yeah, and that was funny
Old
because
Forester up front, Russell's Reserve on the back.
yeah, and I was listening to you like kind of dissect that, but like before we started, and I was like, that's what I think because it's got that smoothness where it's really approachable at the beginning. And then it kind of, for the advanced guys or advanced gals, whoever, that want a little bit of oakiness, vanilla, that rich cinnamon or whatever that, Wild Turkey is known for, you're going to get that in the end. So it's going to, really trickle down. It's, these guys make fun of me for the Kentucky hug comment, but it's very, very...
I'm not getting hugged here.
Not... it creeps. You got to creep.
TLC reference.
Yes.
I like TLC references better than Kentucky Hugs, personally. Because I feel like they're... What?
It's just the reason I say is because when you go down there, that's all they say. I mean, that's
You're getting hugged by a lot of Kentucky people?
No, it's just when they're talking about it, they talk about that's what they call it. That burn that you're feeling in your gut.
That's basically like it burns like hell. And you're like, no. It's
just
a
hug.
really big hug. It's like more of an embrace, like a Kentucky embrace, like a bear hug.
What I do like about this blend is the fact that I just kind of went over that.
Yeah, I see that.
What I like about the blend is that it allows the smoothness of the Heaven Hill, but that Wild Turkey again it kind of coats your tongue. Like if you just drink the Heaven Hill straight, it kind of just goes away. Where I think these two balance out. I mean, we'll get into kind of the cigar pairing, but initially off the bat, I'll say it's good.
I agree with you. I think it's very good, actually.
But this is a pretty mild cigar, right?
Really good. We might need a new chair for Nate. I don't know about those chairs. Those are new to the garage. Cool. Well,
shit.
need a new chair for Nate. Cool. Dustin's fine.
We're glad Dustin's chair is fine.
Yeah. Oh, that one's.
Oh my gosh.
Easy. That's one of my grandma's chairs. All right.
So for our listeners that don't, I mean, you guys
Rob
don't know,
Wilson
but
from Rocky Patel, who was not able to guest star, but he's able to be in the garage, which I call shenanigans a little bit on that. But
yeah, tried to pick up on another chair, and then that chair's
that actually has. Now, granted, we may have been knocked over once or twice before in the garage. Alcohol was involved.
I think you've fallen over in that chair, or fallen out of it.
Fell into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I think
you remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember the other time I did that
glad.
too. I like how Jake has never been drunk before and likes to talk about other people.
No, you guys talk about my drinking. You guys were talking about it before.
Anyways, the
LFD
stands for La Flor Dominicana. That is the Dominican flower, which was, as Nate reminded me, that is what the original bands were. So it was something that So for those of you that don't know about the flower of tobacco plants, you picture the big, leafy, different, basically levels of that, right?
Primings, right?
The primings when you're talking about that, yeah. So the different level of primings are different levels of leaves, but at the top of it, they do something that they call topping the flower, and that is the flower does start to come out the top on a lot of the plants, and then you're going to want to actually top it, take that off so that there's no pollen.
I'm sorry to
cross-pollination.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but look what Jay sent me.
Yeah, it's fucking badass. It's in a 1983 Knight Rider.
That's cool.
I think I had it in like 1986, but that's cool.
Yeah.
It was a solid show. It had a good run.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you don't never apologize about Knight Rider.
Oh, wait, 1 second. You know what my mom sent me before we started?
I'm going to remember this because this happened last week also with Josh and Aaron. Go ahead.
I know, I'm sorry.
What did we find out? Do you want to talk? What did Mom say?
No, Mom sent me this post
Ma.
that said, Whiskey Wednesday, it's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses.
Yeah. It's true.
That was at 7:25. She knew.
She knew.
She knew.
All right.
So, flour.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ready?
My God.
La Flor Dominicana has got the Reserva Especial. This one, when you read it as far as the overall the blend, you've got Ecuadorian Connecticut with Dominican binder and filler, and this was a revamped blend from what I was told at one point. And that they did change it a bit. They obviously changed the marketing and branding behind it. Comes in a white box, comes with a white, pretty elegant looking band. I do like the marketing behind it. I don't think this smokes like a mild cigar, which is what I would expect. And I think that might be because I think the Flor Dominicana is definitely more well known, in my opinion, for strong cigars. Their Double Ajero blend is their best seller. Double Ajero Maduro is like their best seller. But they do also have a lot of different blends out there. They do have some lighter blends, but this one I would say is a medium body. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the first time we tried this, which was about a year ago that it got reintroduced into the shop, right?
Yeah, about a year or two, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was really, really mild. It's funny because, it's kind of a trend. Would you say that, like, when people start out smoking cigars that smoke regularly, they... Like, at least with me, I started kind of really heavy, and now I've tapered back. And now I like the mild to medium. I stick around that medium body most of the time, but I don't really dabble in full anymore. But what I'm saying is I think that the first time I tried this, I thought it was really mild, but now I agree with you, Steve, where it's mostly medium.
Yeah, I'd say it's if you're smoking, I guess it's all relative for the occasional or even the regular smoker. If you're smoking, just like drinks, same thing. And I've said that actually about whiskeys when we were getting into like the difference between like bottle and bond, and it's like making sure it's 100 proof, and then it was going to be, I don't like anything that's below 90 proof or 95, or I like the ones that are like 120 or 115, so that I can scale it back. I think it goes in waves, and I think that's what's happening more. Or will happen more in the bourbon world, that there will be more just straightforward about 90 proof bottles.
Yeah.
And I think the craze of I want to have the
jet fuel,
the heaviest. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just all like a novelty. I've seen it happen in the cigar world that it's basically there was, at one point the Opus X was which is a Fuente product, was like a very full bodied cigar when it was first introduced.
Really?
And anymore it's all relative. There's the Double Ajero out there. There's a lot of full-bodied cigars, and I've seen people go down. We're kind of structured in the tinderbox at Easton that it's the left side of the wall of cigars is a lot of milder to medium cigars. As you go down, you're going to have brand groupings, but you're going to have fuller-bodied cigars as you go down to the right. You see people go further and further down to the right, and then if they smoke more and more and more, they seem to gravitate back towards the middle of the wall or the middle of a certain brand. They're still smoking some full-bodied, but at least in our store, and they're great cigars. We're not selling Hoya de Nicaragua Antaños. We're not selling as many Double Ajeros from La Flor Dominicana. It's if you're smoking those, that's the type of smoker you are. That's what you smoke. But the people that are trying different stuff, they want to kind of have a little bit of a balance. They're going to have a variety. They're going to have all of this where they're going to go back and forth, and I find that they kind of level out in the middle. I don't see people that are smoking full-bodied cigars necessarily go all the way back down to mild. Now, I like a good mild cigar sometimes either in the morning, which is what a lot of people do, but then I also, when I was talking to Pete Johnson from Tatuaje one time, he was the one to say that he actually does the opposite a lot of times. Those guys will smoke a lot of the medium to full-bodied cigars, and then when they get down to, the end of the night, it's almost like they do a nightcap with maybe something a little bit stronger in the glass, and they'll do something a little bit lighter on the palate when it comes to cigars.
John F. Belly asked, what is your opinion on PDRs?
As far as a brand, PDR PDR, I think Abe makes good cigars. I got Richie Riot there, kind of working with him, and he's doing. I'd like to get Richie on here if he's in town sometime. Richie has he was with a couple. I think a couple different companies. One was Padilla at one point, and that's how I got introduced to him through the Smoking 10 event here in Columbus. But he's been with PDR for some time, and from my understanding, he's been showing some of the new packaging, new stuff like that. I don't know if he's been blending as much yet, but he's kind of repackaged a lot. He's had his hands on a lot, and Abe makes a lot of good cigars.
You got to help me, Steve. What's PDR?
It's a brand of cigars.
Oh.
Yeah, PDR cigars.
What does it stand for?
I don't know unless it stands for Pino del Rio, which I don't know if that's an ode to Cuba. I can't remember exactly what PDR stands for.
I just never even heard of it.
Yeah, Abe Flores, I believe it is, that runs that company. He also, they make cigars for other people. But so far, I mean, PDR is definitely, they've got some great ones. One of my favorites from them is, who was it that's asking? John.
Yeah.
One of my favorites would be the AFR, I think 75. It's a little pricier of a blend, but I think it's a great cigar. It's fuller bodied. It's got a lot of age on the tobacco from what I can tell and what I hear. But, yeah, PDR is great.
Jared's on, by the way, too.
I saw Jared on there. We've been talking about the Flor Dominicana.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Capo Oscuro. I'd have to see it, John. He's smoking a PDR Capo Oscuro. I just know that they smoke well. At one point, we carried them in our store, but it really slowed down, and I think that's part of the repackaging, the rebranding, like a lot of cigars will do. A lot of companies will do. They'll repackage it, try to not fool people, but just to get it more relevant. People see it, they ask about it, and they're like, oh, yeah, that was a good cigar. I haven't bought it in forever. And that's why I think they do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm sharing because I never
That's
really
cool.
get to it at the very beginning.
That's cool.
What do you think about the blend? Or not the blend, but the...
As far as the cigar, this one I
together.
really like. And Jared, since Jared is on, and Jared is our La Flor Dominicana rep, is Jared Saunders. He's going to be able to tell you a little bit more and he probably doesn't want me saying this, but at one point when the Andalusian Bull came out, which was a cigar of the year, I think in 2016, for a cigar aficionado, it was told to me, and I'm not going to say it was by Jared, but someone told me that they were utilizing some similar tobaccos in this cigar that they were in the Andalusian Bull. So I can't fact check that. You never really could, I guess, unless you're actually in the factory, which that'll never happen unless you work for La Flor Dominicana when it comes down to that level. And even some of the reps and everyone aren't allowed to get to certain levels, from my understanding. But I'm not saying it smokes like the Andalusian Bull, but they were saying that there's some similarities in actual tobaccos used. I think this is a very well-balanced cigar. And when I describe it, I'm not going to put it in the same ballpark necessarily, but it is, in my opinion, it's going to be kind of pushing. Jared says it's the same wrapper, different priming. So that's probably what I heard back a couple years back. If you hear sirens, I don't think they're coming for us. But I think it's a very well-balanced cigar. I think it's got a little bit of like the woodsy type stuff, as far as like a little bit of cedar.
Yeah.
I think that I'm tasting, it's not creamy, but there's no real spice. There's just a hint maybe of the white pepper stuff.
The cedar's huge on this.
A lot of cedar. I put it up against...
Have you ever said earthy?
No, because I think it's bullshit.
That's aggressive.
Earthy is dirt, in my opinion.
I don't know.
So people use the earthy a lot of the times. I'm not saying people that say it are bullshit. They can be, but I'm not saying everyone that uses that word, they're bullshit because of that. I'm saying that they are... Earth, I don't know what that tastes like. So that's one of those things. We talked about that on episodes past where I look at that as it's an agreed-upon term to describe something.
Here's what I would say to change that. To change away from earthy, I would say grassy.
That's totally different.
Or...
sliding into like second head first with a mouthful of dirt.
But that's an experience.
Yeah, maybe that's what they're agreeing upon.
Yeah, maybe. I'd say grassy. But it's good.
But I hear like grassy and earthy in the same thing. Like they're different, the same description.
Okay.
Like, I mean, that's
Rob's dying back there, man. I don't know who he's laughing at, but it's great. What do you think of these two together? I know last week we kind of discussed like whether something it allows the other to come out more, and we kind of had that weird discussion where some people may have not got it. So do you think that this is just 1-to-1 pairs well? Do you think one activates something else within the other?
I think these are both. They stand alone against each other. They're not. I think it's a decent pairing in the sense that the whiskey doesn't really change. I took I think a puff of the cigar and then I drank the whiskey a couple drinks. Then I went back to the cigar. Nothing's really taken away from the other one. In my opinion, I think it pairs really well because it's very pleasant. It's I don't want to say similar flavors, but it's almost like the overall strength of either one of them is. I think we would right there.
I think we would both like the regular Heaven Hill with this better. I think they would.
Why do you say that?
Just because it's lighter, smoother. I think they would blend a little better. I mean, even though, so when I say that the Heaven Hill is like smoother, it doesn't mean that there's no bite at all. There's still going to be a little bit of bite there, but I think it's just going to be the right amount. I think the Wild Turkey, for me at least, when I take a puff of the cigar and I go back to the whiskey and the blend, I think the cigar is bringing out a lot more of the Wild Turkey spice.
Okay.
Like the mouthfeel is definitely different if I do that vice versa.
Right now, when when you take
if I take
smoke,
a puff, and then I take a sip, it brings out the spices in the whiskey a lot more than the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you compare the cigar to?
Like another cigar?
Yeah. See, wait. I'm sorry. Jared from LFD. Okay, with wine, earthy is more of a rich umami flavor.
Yeah, I don't know where that's going.
Think of mushrooms or mold. So when I read that, if you're describing wine as earthy,
that's not what I think at all.
It's gone bad, and I'm not going to drink it. I don't like how is that a good thing? That's what I want to know. Like, it's earthy. Like, really?
We need to take a sommelier class or something to
earthy,
understand this shit.
Tastes a bit like mold or mushrooms.
I always thought earthy to me meant, like I said, like grass, like not dirt.
And thank you, Jared.
Like
I'm not saying. I'm just sorry.
No, I think that's great. Is Jared like a sommelier? Do you know?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
He knows stuff about cigars. I mean, he's
must like wine.
Rob,
no, I don't know. I mean, maybe he's just making shit up.
Oh, Jared says it helps balance it out. So yeah, he's definitely got a different level of understanding than I do. It's like I'm picturing like it's kind of like the pharmaceutical the pharmaceutical commercials, right? It's they say all this good stuff about it, and then at the very end, like that. The guy's reading fine print, and the smaller the fine print, the faster he talks. And then it's just like it balances out. No, it's like, oh, this will make you feel great. By the way, you might start bleeding from all areas of your body.
Right, yeah, exactly. Rob, can you? How do you say this word? Is it umami? Umami. Umami. UMAMI.
We need to get a microphone. Like we'll have one of the microphones sitting back there that they can actually like just pass it around. No. Next week.
Recently discovered, if you will, spot on your tongue because
spot on your tongue.
Like flavors, they say you taste sweet on one part of your tongue, spice.
Yeah, he says the category of taste in food besides sweet.
Umami is like right, and I think it's right in the center of your tongue, and it's a different flavor profile.
It's besides sweet, sour, salt, and bitter, corresponding to the flavor of glutamates, especially monosodium glutamate.
Jesus Christ. Jared says we really don't need to hear Rob. That's fair. That's fair. No, I love the community. We always talk about this, with the cigar and the bourbon community, is how friendly people are and supportive, which is nice.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I know. Very sarcastic group as well.
So what do you think of the? I mean, you guys never really.
Did you ever compare this to anything?
No, I didn't because we kind of went on the umami thing.
Umami.
Yeah. What I would compare it to. What I would compare this to. Damn, I don't know. Maybe Laranja.
Okay.
Eric Espinoza.
Interesting.
Monte Cristo Nicaraguan series. Monte Cristo. I don't think the Espinosa Habano
No.
It's,
Monte Cristo,
it's a
Nicaragua,
hint.
really.
It's a hint under the Sober Mesa. Does that make sense?
It's funny when I'm trying to compare it. I guess when I'm trying to compare two different cigars, it's almost like it gets milder.
As it goes?
No, like just in my mind, like in palate and everything. I'm trying to remind. Like
So what are you thinking? Like Romeo and Julieta?
Yeah, I was thinking like Romeo. I was thinking like Monte Cristo White.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, like in those. I mean, and that's I think good company to be in.
Yeah, I'd say.
And when I'm thinking like so, Rob and we have him coming on August 14th, I think, if that's a Wednesday.
He doesn't know.
But it's with that, I'm thinking like the Rocky Patel group. And the typical like medium bodied Rocky Patel cigars I'm thinking of, I don't. It's not.
What about the Corojo?
Old World Reserve Corojo.
Yeah, not the same essence, like
No.
but the
But
body.
then I'd put it closer to maybe a stronger 1999 vintage Connecticut.
yeah.
So I guess I
can
mean
go that
that's.
It's not just the white and gold band.
No, I mean, but I think that's why and maybe that is part of the play on it, is that I think that might be something that, they're kind of dressing it up as one of, and I think that's why Rocky did it too. I think that's why, you have Monte Cristo doing the white series.
Most lighter cigars have lighter bands. Would you say that?
Typically,
within reason.
Typically,
to
yeah.
the company.
You got Ashton Classics. You've got Davidoffs have a lot of white bands on them. You got the Monte Cristo white. But I mean, there's other companies that don't do it. But I mean, Rocky Patel's got the vintage Connecticut. I think they picked the white band for a reason. I mean, that's smart. I mean, it's.
Maybe it has, and I don't know even for sure, but maybe it has relation to the history of bands.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It all started with a white band.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
it absolutely could. It absolutely could. So
Jared says, "I want to see Umami Bourbon and BS T-shirts."
I don't even know what that would look like.
Is there
other
like a
than
symbol
tongue
for
with
that?
An arrow.
We just make up our own symbol for it.
I don't want to see where that goes.
Is it like half of a Rolling Stones logo and?
No. And for anyone
like-
that has connection to the Rolling Stones,
wait. It's like half of the Rolling Stones logo coming through a Lincoln Park triangle.
Yeah,
With the rainbow.
let's have two lawsuits.
Dude,
Two
Rob's mind was just blown.
Because he's thinking about how many times we might be
Dude,
sued.
he's amazed right
Yeah,
now.
he's like, oh yeah, let's piss off a legendary band and they had their day.
Let's just
band.
change the color of the rainbow just a little bit. Then it's not Lincoln Park.
No, that's not how it works. It's like Vanilla Ice with the whole thing. It's like, no, their song went ding 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 to the ding ding. Mine went ding 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 to the ding ding. It's totally different. And everyone watching that VH1 special is like,
Oh my gosh.
what the fuck?
That's amazing. What's our time right now? We're
at
good
42.
at 42 minutes, man. That's great. So, I mean, we've been shooting it straight. And then, no, that's not a play on words. I mean, it is a play on words. But
Sounds totally different, Jared says. Get Jesus. Our sound is clearly not good enough that you think that sounds the same.
Yeah. But no, shooting it straight. So it is what it means. It's it's telling it like how it is, and it's great for us because we do drink on the podcast. So it's the pun is intended. But I think it's great because honestly it's and another pun, but honestly it's one of those subjects that I don't think a lot of people talk about, and it's. I was thinking about this the other day because when you're talking to someone and you can kind of tell, and it doesn't matter if they're a friend or a family member, when you're talking to them and you can kind of tell that they're like trying to let you down easy, whether it be bad information or they're trying to dumb something down, whether it be good information and it's a surprise is obviously like kind of a bad example of that. But what I mean by shooting it straight is that when you're telling it like how it is, it may not be like the best thing or the most wonderful thing that you want to hear at the time, but at least you're honest. And I think honesty is one of those things that is undervalued.
Just shooting it straight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's undervalued. And I think when you look at, just regular conversations and you're trying to be, nice and you don't have to be mean, when you're talking to someone when you're trying to be honest. But I guess what my point is I don't know, shooting it straight to me is a lot more valuable, and we can go a lot more into that. But starting the conversation off, I mean, I
think that's a good way to frame it.
I mean, Steve's like honest about that most of the time.
And Nate is giving his best. Never used a Mac before, I want to say. Is that right?
He did pretty good earlier.
Did you mess it up?
No.
Oh.
Because of this. That way it's more up in your.
I don't want it up in my face.
That's that way you don't have to put it.
I don't like it up my face.
Good idea.
Makes it easier for you to talk into.
Whatever. Yeah, that's right, Facebook, whatever.
I kind of just lean on the table. Yeah. There you go. There you go.
I'm going to use that other microphone from now on. I like that stand better.
Sounds better.
No, yes, I am. You say I do shoot it straight most of the time.
95% of the time. 99.9, sorry.
No, so, all right. With shooting it straight for me, and Ryan Ponus says we sound like golf commentators, and I feel like with the microphones we are kind of doing that. I think maybe, in a few years we might go to the headset mics so that we're not doing this. And it's like, oh, well, I got to tell you that he's got a tough shot there. I hope if he gets that dog leg, I don't know golf terms.
No, bullshit. Like, this is like the best that we've like ever had, and we're...
No, I know. I got to have fun with it.
Yeah.
Shooting it straight, I would say there are times with shooting it straight, it's one of those things. It's like pulling a Band-Aid off. So you brought up, when you're being honest with someone because of what?
Well, whether it be, I mean, it's like let's not just start off negative, but let's start off negative and say that it's a bad situation. Like you're trying to get something off your chest, but you're trying to be the nicest person you can be because you care about them.
Yeah. So that's that age old thing where, as far as, okay, let's keep it relevant to the first part of this podcast, which is the whiskey and the cigars. So we've got, say Jared, who's from LFD, who he was the one that was kind enough to, and I appreciate, I don't know if he's still on or not, but I didn't say it earlier, is that he's the one that was in yesterday, and he's like, hey, here's some cigars if you guys want to do it on the podcast at any point, so
yeah.
So LFD kind of sponsored this one by way of Jared, and I can look at it as that if Jared's the rep and he is offering a new cigar, so even in business there are times where you soften it, and you wonder, it's like, all right, so why am I doing that? Because I don't want to offend them. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to make the situation worse. Or do I tell them when it comes down to it, it's like, I shouldn't be hurting your feelings because you didn't necessarily create the cigar. You didn't roll it. You're representing it. You're doing your job. You hand it to me, and I'm like, well, it's cracking, and it tastes a little young, and it needs to sit more, and it tastes like shit. Like, how far do you take that, or you just say, you know what, it's not really hitting my palate the way I'm not a huge fan. It's smoking okay. It's not really for me. It might sell. We've tried cigars like this before. I don't think it's going to sell. I wouldn't buy it myself.
Yeah. Well, that's really shooting it straight.
It is.
If you could say that without the last,
I
wouldn't buy it.
But if you're shooting it straight, I guess it's. Are you short and to the point, or do you actually take it to the level of you are giving them reasons why? Because that's when I see shooting it straight, it's the same thing. And Jared says different strokes for different folks. There's a million cigars out there. I wasn't attacking this cigar or anything you do, Jared. I was giving that as an example since you were so kind to do this. I enjoy this cigar, and I encourage everyone to check it out. And that's not just because it was donated from you, Jared. I think it's a good cigar.
Here's shooting it straight, Jared. The first time I tried it, I didn't like it at all, and now I like it.
That's how I started my best man speech at my brother's wedding. Not about a cigar, but about my sister-in-law.
I hated you when he brought you home.
Say that.
And now I love you.
I forget verbatim. I can't do verbatim, but it literally was. I got the microphone in front of everyone, my family included. I said, when I first met Alicia, I didn't really care for her.
Yeah.
That was the best man speech.
Yeah. It's great.
And then I cheersed everyone and said, I hope it works out. See you later. See you on the dance floor.
See, that was pretty short and sweet. You didn't say you weren't saying a reason why.
No, I did. I went into it. It was a
okay.
great speech. I think
Okay.
it's
Now I get it.
it's recorded in history. I think with shooting it straight, it's interesting because I do. I look at emotions. You say that I'm good at it as far as I do it most of the time. So maybe I'm not good at it, but I 90-some% of the time I shoot people
I don't think you're
straight.
good at it. I just think you do it.
Thank you. Well,
I mean, it's like before here, like when you're trying to do all this shit with like the box and like you're literally like, no, I don't mean to be a dick. I'm just like trying to figure this out.
well, I think that's.
But like at the
so-
beginning, like we're all like, Jesus, like come on. If you had hair, it'd be on fire.
Yeah. Well, probably not on fire, but I think, yeah, I'd be pulling it out. I think I got a bug on me. Dude, it's just sometimes it's that brings up priority. You know, when there's priority that I have to get something done like I was earlier, and that's happened before doing this type of stuff, and it does not just with the podcast but with business as well. It's like sometimes you just put feelings aside.
Yeah.
And if you want to be offended, if you want to be turned off, that's up to me to apologize. Hey, I was out of line earlier because I was trying to get things done. Sorry if I upset you. I'm kind of sorry just because I don't want you to be upset. Given the circumstances of that situation, I'm not sorry because I'd handle it again 10 times out of 10 the same way, given all the circumstances.
Well, and that's also on the other person's shoulders too, to be honest with you about how they feel. Like this, I don't want this to turn into like a whole, I feel this way, you feel that way. But I mean, if you say something to me and it comes across not even straight, it's very either demeaning or angry or whatever, and I don't let you know, then how are you supposed to know that I'm irritated now or how you act?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, that's
we've
part of
talked about that
communication.
before.
Yeah, that's all communication. I mean, so like Liz and I were just having a conversation. We're looking at putting a deck on the back of the house. That's been a conversation for a while, and I've mentioned on previous podcasts when you were asking me, what my plan is going forward, and that's still actually something going on right now. So I invited a friend over who I hadn't seen in a while, but they do this amazing work in the Ohio area. I'll give them a plug called Vaughnscapes, and they do basically projects that are basically they don't go below $10,000 projects. And so for what I want to do, it's way below that. So I said, hey man, maybe you can come out, give me some ideas. I don't know if you do smaller work, all that stuff. And we talked a bit, and he was all about it. I mean, he basically read my mind on what I was looking for as far as the project and the budget and everything else. And we were talking about doing a patio. Well, then I come home last night, and I had told Liz that, and then all of a sudden she's like, well, I'm thinking a deck. And then you say patio, and she wasn't all that wild about it. And I was like, well, let's just see what the project looks like. Let me see. He's going to send some ideas. Let's look at them and see if we like what he has to say. And then she gave me a couple ideas about like, well, with our backyard, I mean, because you can kind of see Sunbury Road off in the distance, and then there's a walking path. I don't want it to just be like, pavers or stone and then go straight into the yard with no barrier, and then you're on the walking path, and it just feels like people can just walk up to you. Like we're hanging out in the back, you know what I mean, smoking cigars, having whiskey or whatever. Or she wants to lay out or something like that. It's like she's just like part of the neighborhood. And I was like, I get what you're saying. I said, but with a deck, you're going to have a railing. I said, you can see their deck, you can see the neighbor's deck, you can see everyone's deck. Like a railing doesn't really do a whole lot.
Right.
So it's one of those things where, like, at first I was like, I get what you're trying to say, but now you're basically saying the house that I picked, because that was before we decided to move in together. I was like, I know that's a weakness of the house.
Yeah.
And then she brought up the fact that she was like, and this is all within about 5-10 minutes. It's all within about 5-10 minutes. So this is where, I said, I get it. And then she says, well, maybe like some bushes or something like that. I said, yeah, just, everything we do is going to add cost to it, but that's a really good idea. I see what you're saying as far as, maybe we'll do some bushes, or then she brought up a half wall. Here's where it got a little foggy, because I was shooting it straight. She was trying to convey what her thoughts were. And then I was agreeing with them, and I'll tell you, it was one of those things where I would agree with her, and then she's like, no, I guess what I'm trying to say is this. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, and she's like, why are you getting frustrated? I'm like, see, I'm not frustrated with anything you're saying. It's literally the conversation seems to be breaking down because I'm I'm agreeing with what you're saying because they're good points. And then as soon as I agree with it, I'm like, yeah, we'll look into it. You're trying to, I guess, explain it further. Fast forward 5 minutes.
She may feel like when you do that, though, that you're just brushing it off.
No, and that may be, but again, me shooting it straight,
I
it's like,
know,
no, I get what you're
know.
saying. She then just wanted to be a part of it. She wanted to, see all this stuff. She's just hesitant, and she was a little nervous about it, and that's where I said, that's why we're doing it this way, so that I do want to include you, and everything I've done, I've included you up to this point, and this is one of those conversations that you didn't just come home and I'm like, hey, ta-da, I hope you like it. It's, hey, ta-da, I got a friend over, and we bullshitted for a half hour. And then he looked at it and he's like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I'm like, hey, that sounds great. I can't wait to see it. Tell Liz about it. And then she's kind of excited, but then there's reasons that she wasn't. And as soon as I was listening to her and then I communicate back, yeah, I hear what you're saying and I agree with you, it was continuing. So it's just one of those things. If she would have just said, hey, I really wish I would have been there for the estimate and to talk to him and give him my ideas as well and be a part of the conversation. And I'd be like, you're right, that didn't work out, so let's see what he comes back with, and then I'll include you in the next conversation.
Right.
And then that was that.
Did she say that later?
Yeah, that's what she said.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so that's what
Now
I'm saying.
makes
It was
sense.
later. Yeah.
So it built till the point that basically like she couldn't handle it and had to
it's not
say
that she
what
couldn't handle it. It was just like we basically sifted through the
Bullshit,
ideas
yeah.
and Liz, when you listen to this, no, I'm not saying bullshit. Thank you, Jake. I'm
Sorry.
saying
I don't mean that either, Liz.
sifting through what she's trying to get across.
Yeah.
When sometimes, and this is, I guess, something to introduce, sometimes you don't know how to shoot it straight because it is something you're still sorting through in your mind. So when you want to respond to someone or tell them how you feel, you're put on the spot and you don't know yet what your full opinion is, so that's where the communication comes out. So sometimes shooting it straight is literally having a conversation with someone about whatever the topic is, about your opinion. Hey, what do you think? And you're like, well, I'm not really sure, and you start talking about that. That's not necessarily not shooting it straight.
And then it's okay to say, well, hey, like, do you mind if we talk about this later once I get my thoughts?
No, absolutely.
Like, I think that's one of the things that, like, I struggle with, like, when we talk about the podcast or anything, is that, like, you're pretty witty and you figure out things. Like, you have your mindset, but when we're talking about it, I don't really know how to respond. So then it really seems like I don't really give a shit, but what I should say is I need to process this.
Yeah, and that's part of shooting
Basically.
it straight. Is if you so that's a lot of situations too. I think when it comes to, again, like, I would say the metaphor of shooting whiskey straight. It's straight into the point. But I tell you what, there's a lot of times you'll take a shot of whiskey and you don't know what to think of it because you just fucking took the shot of whiskey.
Yeah.
So on your side of it, that's the listening side. So that's the listening side is if someone, and you're not sure how, what your feelings are, your thoughts are on something, you're still trying to gather it, and someone kind of rips it off and just is like, hey, this is what I think. This is my, I'm pretty confident in this. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're right or wrong or they're not going to think about what you have to say about it. It's just simply that they've spoken. And then if you don't know what to say, that's literally, I think that's the shooting it straight on the other side, is that anyone can just say, hey, you know what? I need more time to think about this. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you just are quiet and don't say anything, then the communication is broken down.
Yeah.
So I think that's another, like, if you want to, like, for like anyone keeping track at home, I think that is a tick in the column of the reasons why you should shoot it straight and be honest and open.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think there's a barrier here that we're not talking about either, and I'd like to add it where, when you bring that into a business or a job perspective, I think it can sometimes get into trouble as well, where, like, you want everyone to be honest with you, you want your boss, your coworkers to be honest with you, but then there may be rules, like, against certain things, or whether there's regulations, whether there's something new that's happening with the company, and, like, the boss doesn't really want you to know what's going on yet because he doesn't know. He can't tell you that he doesn't know, but he just kind of, like, shrugs it off. So, like, when do you think that it's appropriate, I guess, is to get irritated when you can smell bullshit from a situation? in a business perspective or a job perspective? Do you think that you should like just tell, like your boss and be straight up and shoot it straight, say, hey, like I can kind of not curse, but I can kind of smell the crap load on this, and it doesn't seem like I'm really being told the truth here.
Yeah, so it's something that there are roles too. So you're taking it out of like personal relationships, you're taking it into the business world, and I'll say this with the business world. You have to respect your role sometimes, and that's not a matter of person to person. It's the fact that I'd say your overall role in the company is not to know that. It's not to know that, if they're making a decision on something and you want to know the answer to it, it really is. You're not a decision maker. You're not a playmaker at that level. You might be involved in the play. And that's where, in a sense, if you want to go to like I know like we talk about like football, other sports, but it's like football and everything like that. If you're the wide receiver and you're going out running your route and you're doing all that stuff, and you want to know if that ball's going to be thrown to you, and you feel like it should because you're open, and then the coach, and then the quarterback at the time sees something else going on, and they don't throw to you, and you see a wide receiver come back to the line of scrimmage, you're like, what the fuck, man? Like, why didn't you throw it to me? I was wide open. And he's like, well, if I had the time to explain it to you, I'm going to tell you it's because I had this defensive end coming in and he missed his block, and so I had to actually move out of the way. And then by the time I looked at you, I didn't have a clean throw, and so that's why I threw it to the guy that wasn't open. I threw it to the sidelines because that's how it fucking works. You know what I mean? That's just, it's not about you. It's about the company when it comes to business.
Yeah, I get
now,
that.
if you have a passive-aggressive leader or passive-aggressive manager, boss, whatever it might be, that's where I think you run into problems, because that at that point they just don't want, they're avoiding, in my opinion, confrontation, and that's where you run into a problem, is if you never get to that level. No,
and I think that's a huge point. Like, and it's not always one of those things where it can be explained either. It's playing devil's advocate and against my own question is like it really can't be explained sometimes, and I do like the fact that you do bring up that it sometimes depends on your role, depending on if it is a sport or a team atmosphere, that it's sometimes even if you are mad, you kind of have to suck it up and be a part of the bigger picture. Now, if you do smell it, I would still be honest with whoever it is. Like if I was like a running back or like a coach, like I remember back when I was in college and when I was told something, like, for instance, I'll give you this example. So when I was starting my sophomore year of college, I broke my hand in the first scrimmage game. And then so I asked, we went and got it evaluated, and I broke my hand. And my parents and I were trying to figure out how to basically get me back on the field the fastest, right? And like any young kid wants to do. And so what we arrived at, and it's because of, what'd you do to my cork? Anyways, what we arrived at is that, we were going to go get 2 screws put in my hand because it would get me back on the field faster, right? So, but here's what I need to add in is that I was told that, yeah, like you'll be able to play like once you get those screws back in and once you're cleared, right?
Right.
Well, when that time came and I was cleared to play, I missed the first like 5 games, and I didn't play until like game 9 or 10 because like the depth chart had already shifted. So it wasn't even valued that that's what they told me. And I talked to them about it, and all that they could say was, well, this is kind of like the nature of the beast. And I think that like sports is it's a lot like business and jobs, but it's a lot different too, where I think that there's a lot of value in me going in and saying, no, this is what you told me, and I took these measures to get back to where I needed to be and where I wanted to be, and you didn't honor your own words. And I think that, unfortunately, I mean, I wouldn't advise people to do it in like a business atmosphere, but I still think there's value there. Is that wrong?
It's not about the value. I think it's so sometimes it's about some patience, and you have to understand that, again, if you're looking at business, it's yes, you want to feel valued. Obviously, that's a big part of it. But I will say that sometimes you are that cog in the machine. I mean, that's how this works. So it's the same thing as if you make the call, and this is a judgment call sometimes. If you have an employee that's having issues or, like in your sense, you're injured, and now you're going to get to the level of, I think back to my management days, even when I was a frontline guy on the trucks back at a moving company. You got a guy that's, got terrible attendance. You got a guy that is not that great, but you also have 30 trucks booked.
Right.
And you need him that day. There are times where it's like, all right, I do need him this time, and it's a selfish play for the company and for everyone involved, and we might have some fallout in that sense from the jobs that they go on. They may not be 100%, but at least we get them done, and then we do the cleanup afterwards, and then we'll handle this employee. So I'm going to let him go out today, but yes, he is on the schedule for 9 o'clock tomorrow to get fired.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's what side of the ball are you on in that regard. So shooting it straight, I mean, maybe sometimes there is a timing thing, and I'll kind of balance that back to, or throw it back to, friendships and personal relationships. I mean, sometimes you do have to wait. To kind of make it, and it's not trivial. I think this is something valid, but, it's if you're in a relationship that's not 100% serious, right? And this will get the guys in the garage looking up. So you start dating a girl, right? Yeah, exactly. You start dating a girl, and things are going well, and all of a sudden it's like November 31st, December 10th, and you're like, I'm not sure. So, all right, so here you go. Now it's like, do you want to shoot this person that you're in a relationship with? You want to shoot them straight and say, hey, I'm not really sure. You're already fucked up. I mean, like, this point, it's like you there's value in telling them the truth, but at the same time, it's like now you've already basically ruined Christmas, and they're about to see their grandma for the first time in a long time. Dustin says, have you bought the Christmas gift yet or not, though? That's why you get a receipt, whether it's a gift receipt or not. But I'm saying is, like, what do you want to do with that situation? I mean, in your opinion, Jake, if you're going to do that, do you ride it out through the holidays and do a timing thing and then just kind of go through the motions and get through the holiday, and then about, I don't know, you have to give it a little bit of time. So now you're talking like January 20th maybe, or a little bit after New Year's, that you had a great New Year's and you did that. You had a good Christmas.
But I've done this before. Like, it's...
So what do you do now? Now that you've done it before, if it happened again, like, how would you handle that? Or what advice would you give someone that was in that situation? Shoot them straight right now, or do you wait?
Like, on how... I'm sorry, I was listening, but what was the beginning of the...
You're in a relationship,
example?
Right?
Yeah.
You've been together for... It can be, like, say, a year.
Yeah.
Say it's 6 months. Say it's 2 years.
Yeah.
And you're getting cashed out. There's other issues, or you just aren't sure about it, and it's November 30th, it's December 10th, whatever it is, and do you shoot them straight? Do you start the conversation? Do you break, like, you want to break up with them? Do you break up with that person before the holidays, or do you break up with them on, like, say, January 20th and go through it? You're going to still shoot them straight, but you're talking about the same thing with business. Do you want to know now, but there's another agenda?
So
okay. What would you tell someone now is my question.
It doesn't mean that I, like, want to know now. I'm just, so... What? Okay, I'll answer your question or your example. So I've been a part of that whole game before, and I wish that I could have gone back and at least told the person that I was with how I felt, because then maybe they would have known at least.
Right.
I mean, does that make sense? Like, because if they really did care about you, then either they would process it and figure it out for themselves and understand how you feel, and maybe diagnose what they were doing at that moment to make you feel that way, or maybe they would ask you more questions, right? Or they would say, hey, like, I've been kind of feeling the same way, and that's why I've backed off, and that's why you're irritated. And then you wouldn't have to go through the holiday. You wouldn't have wasted all this time. And
that's what you tell someone now. That's what you would say. Like,
because I've
address
done
it now.
Yeah, because like I remember in Alicia and I's relationship where it was, like, we had a really big confrontation between the two of us, like within a year, and it was my fault. And like I told her to leave me because I didn't deserve her anymore. And
when was this? What time of the year was that?
Summer.
All right, summer. Okay.
Yeah, so like I told Alicia to leave me and that I didn't deserve her anymore. And what she do? She stayed, and then she discussed with me about what I could do to at least make up for it, or what are or promising her, not doing these things again, or whatever have you. But at least we were honest with each other, and that's the thing. And we talk about communication all the time, and I think that's where this is really going towards, is that it's driving towards a communicational issue, and that would be my advice to your example, Steve. Because
so shoot it straight, regardless of the timeline. You're basically saying that you
do it
straight into it.
Yeah, but you're a good proponent of this, Steve. I would think is that you can say things while also being polite, while also saying the right things within shooting it straight. And I think that's a real art form. But the problem is that at least when I was going through that confrontation with Alicia, that when you feel like you're lying, it changes you. At least if you're a person
no doubt, absolutely.
Yeah, and it changes you, and it doesn't. Then you feel like everything you do say, like you're covering up another lie, and it just cascades and cascades. And it's the same thing, I think, in a relationship or family business, that when you're not explaining what's truly in your heart and your mind in a thoughtful way, that you're just screwing yourself and your loved ones. And even the people
by holding back is what you're saying.
Yeah, and maybe even the people that you don't care about. Maybe you just value them as a person, as a human being. I think that we all deserve that. Yeah. That's why I thought about this topic, was because we all deserve to be honest with one another. And it really does suck when it comes to a situation where either someone doesn't value their own word to yours, or they value their word more than yours. Does that make sense?
It does. You're going straight into the value, deserve, all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like Rob says, sometimes you need to, Rob Wilson says, sometimes you need to work out with yourself how to address the situation. And I think there's some value there. I think there's definitely some value there. It doesn't
seem like you're like, I don't know, like I don't know.
Doesn't shoot me straight. How about that? Now that everyone,
watching,
here
it is. Here's
Go after it.
It just doesn't seem like you're agreeing with it much. Or is there just a lot of things that you think?
I'd say I agree with being honest or telling it like it is and shooting it straight. However, I think that if you do care about the person, there is the inner struggle. Is that all right? If I tell them exactly how I feel right now, or tell them that you fucked up when they are already feeling low, do I tell them now, or do I wait and try to gauge it? Am I letting the whole situation down? Am I Tony says turn down the gain. I think that's turn down the gain on the iRig real quick, will you, a little bit? Yeah.
Nate, I keep talking out of the side of my mic because I'm talking to you.
Okay. Turn down the main down a little bit there.
Working out the kinks.
Yeah, working out the kinks. So I think that when you are dealing with other people, it's not necessarily you put their emotions, their feelings before yours. You don't put when it comes to business, personal relationships, whatever it might be, you don't have to necessarily put everything else first before yours. First of all, make sure you know what you want to say. And if you know what you want to say, then at that point you can kind of get to that level of having a conversation. And again, it's shooting someone straight can sometimes be bringing up the conversation. And even if that person is not going to be happy with what the conversation is and they're annoyed with it, shooting someone straight shooting it straight can be, you see something going on, you already see that person struggling, whether it be an employee or someone in your life, and that's where you just say, all right, I'm going to introduce this up. Hey man, like if you ever need to talk, let me know.
Let me ask you this question: with your manager position or when you were with 2 Men in a Truck, right?
Okay.
So, did you ever have one of those like classic TV movie situations where, like, you just heard like this employee has had like 2 babies, or they just had like a newborn or whatever, and like they have all these things that like they either need money or there's something that else went wrong, and like you already have them scheduled that like you have to fire? Like, did you ever have that kind of situation?
So I don't know if this is what you're saying. I had a great employee. It was when I was the sales and marketing manager. So it was when I was a senior manager. This is before the last position I was at 2-Man Truck, and I still remember this because it was someone that I actually thought was really good, and I had a lot of experiences in the 10 years of management at that company, and I had upwards of 120 employees at one point. Now, when I was the sales and marketing manager, I was looking over the inside sales people as well as the outside sales, the marketing manager, the administrative assistant, so basically the office manager as well, and then I was also working with the HR manager and the operations manager. And so I still recall this one incident. I don't know if this, I think this applies to what you're saying, is that I saw it when you see an employee struggling, and this individual was just absolutely head on straight, younger person. They were definitely doing things really well, and they were inside sales, so they were like killing it on sales. They were killing it on talking to customers. They were working with their coworkers really well. Now, at that point, they had an issue in their personal life, and to shoot it straight, this was a single female who was in a relationship, and it seemed that the relationship was not going all that well. Then this individual became pregnant, and when they became pregnant, you saw this person that was the first to grab the phone when it rang, because it just basically went to the bullpen, and they would grab the phone. They'd be the first one. They'd be offering everything, all that stuff. To full circle, months later, after all this stuff happened, you could tell they were not in a good place, but they were dealing with life. They had their head down on their desk. They were the last person to answer the phone, and we're talking about commission sales against. Yeah. It was a draw against minimum wage. Yeah. So if you don't do your job, you will get, at that point, it was probably like, I don't know, like $8 an hour or something like that.
Right.
And so like that was where it went. So then all of a sudden, as a sales manager, that was part of my job, is that I would have to look at the numbers, and I would look at everything, and it's like, you just saw it just fucking dip. Now everyone else's numbers went up, so that was good for them, because now they're in better graces, they're making more money, and so they're fine with it. Now this is where I had the first conversation with them. It's like, hey, I noticed a big shift, and I was somewhat honest with her, and I didn't get into the personal life, but I was like, this is what I'm seeing at work.
Yeah.
Another month went by, nothing got better. Another month went by, but I was doing also my due diligence of the company side of it, and I was doing the write-ups, the verbal,
but it's
the
good
written,
that
everything
you
else.
let her know.
Try to let her know, but
again,
no one's going to listen to it, or she didn't want to listen to it. So then it was like, but you also, when it comes to business, you can't say certain things. I can't tell her, it's like, hey, ever since you got, pregnant, your sales has gone to shit. I know your personal life's in the toilet, but while you're here, you're making it worse, because
you couldn't say that. I know that I can tell that things are going on in your life, and you can't say that.
That's a really slippery slope, because
really,
I'll say, when this all was said and
I've
done,
never been in a situation like
I'll
that,
say
so
this,
I don't know.
when I was all said and done, I had a female that was a minority, that was a single mother.
Damn, you're already screwed there.
That was let go. That and people might think this is a bad situation, because this is when it comes down to business, and you're protecting your business, and you can only help people so much. Like, as much as you want to help someone, it's like, when it came down to it, we won the case of unemployment against that person, because at that point, it's like, I've tried to help, I've tried to communicate with you, you don't want to change, you don't want to do it, so now that we have to let you go. I felt bad about it as a person, but at the same time, it's like, I can't do your job for you, so at this point, it's like, we have to let you go, file for unemployment. I've got records showing that, like, that's where you can't get into it, because if that person was able to bring up a conversation that I couldn't deny successfully, it's like, yeah, as soon as I got pregnant, they came down on me harder. As soon as I had my kid, I was held to a different standard. And it's like, no, this is where it is. These are the numbers. This is it. This is when I talked to you on this date. This is what we talked about. You signed it, yada, yada, yada. and now you're miserable. So that's one of those situations where you hope that person found their way outside of the work. It's like that was one of those situations. So yeah, I mean, you want to talk to them straight, but sometimes you can't tell them everything. And when it comes to business, legally. Because again, it's like when you're hiring someone or whatever, and it's like, or firing someone, you're like, I can't tell you that. Yeah, in 2 weeks you're going to be doing this because this person won't be here anymore. Because if you say that, all of a sudden you've exposed the greater machine there, and you're putting that at risk. And at that point, I don't fucking care about your feelings.
Yeah,
I mean, I do, but I mean, when it comes down to your actions in the office or whatever it is, like you can't do that.
I mean, I'll just say this: like, I get that. Like, that's the way it sometimes has to be. It just sucks that it has to be that way.
I mean, sometimes life sucks.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't want to hear what you have to say. So if you say something, so Rob's here again. I'm going to keep bringing that up because he'll be here, and I can't wait to have him on in August 14th. But it's like if he brings me a cigar and I smoke it, I mean, I hope that, and this is another thing when you get into this, especially when you're dealing with people that you've known for a while, especially in relationships or in business, if you've known them for a while, you hopefully in your day-to-day conversations, you can shoot them straight enough and tell them the truth that it's like, if Rob comes to me, he's like, dude, your numbers are down, I need you to buy some stuff, or we need to do this. And I mean, he never really asks, I need you to buy some stuff, but it's like, hey, what do you think of this new cigar that we have? And he'll be able to tell probably pretty quickly, unless I'm that good at covering it up, and I'm not a great liar, is that if I'm like, oh, you know what, it's construction's really good, and like you start going a little high voice, you start drawing out your words, it's like you're trying not to tell me the truth that you don't like the cigar.
And he doesn't like the cigar?
No, if a rep does, but again, that's their job. I'm saying if he asks me, like, what do I think about this new cigar they have, and I'm going to be like, I can do that whole line of, sometimes it's the truth. That's the easy way out. Is that, oh, you know what, it doesn't really hit my palate. It might sell. I'm sure it does well at other stores. Where other times you're just going to be like, hey, you know what, I don't see that coming into our inventory. And he's going to be like, well, why not? I mean, I'm killing it everywhere else. It's like, honestly, I don't know how you're killing it everywhere else, because this cigar I don't think it's good.
I just don't know why that's like even a discussion of even maybe being a bad thing. Like, it's like I sometimes think it's even harder to do that. Like, if you and the person like aren't on good standings. Does that make sense?
Harder to do what?
Like, I think it's hard to be honest with the person if you're not in good standings. So like it's a lot easier to be honest with someone because you know that you can say that. But when you're already on, like thin ice with whoever it is, like at least for me, like I've noticed in my past that I felt like when I wasn't in good standings with whoever I was talking to, it was like I was just like tripping over myself, just trying to talk to him.
Yeah, I think if you're not in good standings with that person, you probably shouldn't care anymore. Like, I mean, you're just like,
yeah, but if it's someone that you have to be in contact with regardless, like you don't have a choice.
So, okay. In that regard, with my actual example, it's kind of like if Rob doesn't want to come into the shop anymore, the industry has developed a point that we'll order Rocky Patel cigars from a distributor.
Right? Like, you don't have to worry about that shit.
And then he doesn't come back in. And if that'd be a bold strategy, but a very effective
I still like
strategy.
You, Rob.
It's like, it's like, hey, Rob, I
don't
be
deal
honest,
with this stuff.
And there are people that will be that honest. I know Rob will tell you there's been shop owners or managers or whoever the buyers are that are like literally like, hey man, I don't want to deal with you anymore. Maybe not to him, but he's seen it in the industry, honestly. I mean, that's just how it works, because there are people that are just that straightforward and bold, and sometimes they're overly bold and overly straightforward that they don't fucking think what they have to say.
No.
That they don't think of the reasons why, and sometimes it's not even the person that they're talking to, it's other situations.
Yeah. I mean, it may have burned me in this last interview, just because I said I said that I don't know if I would be like a bulldog salesman.
Yeah, I mean,
which maybe that's what they needed.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't burn you though, because there's a lot of times, and I'm not saying with that specific
I don't know.
situation.
That's the thing. You never know.
You don't.
In an interview style.
No, you don't. Same thing with like a first date. You know what I mean? Or second date or third date, same thing. Interviewing is the same thing as dating. It's like when you get down to it, it's like you really like that person, you really want that job, whatever, and you don't know necessarily what turned that person off from making you the decision to give more time, to give that job, give that relationship a shot.
It's a lot easier to ask like the girl that won't message you back than like the
because
the
they're not
boss
messaging
that, like,
you back.
Than like the person
Yeah,
that
you can send
you wanted to be your
text
boss.
messages. Be like, hey, I don't know if you're in the shower or not, but I've tried to call you. Like a cable guy, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, I was in the shower, I thought I heard the phone ring.
This is me
probably wasn't
again.
you. And then it ends with, I'm gonna check out the new mics. Oh shit. And that's what that's where it all goes down.
Or you like you call
If
them
you
like
do that
5
on a
times.
job, you will not get a job. I'm going to say that right now. Personal, public service announcement. Don't keep calling. You will not get hired.
It's always like the second
Public safety announcement, service announcement. Also,
It's always-
don't do that with dating. You will not get another date.
It's like the second to last call is always like the really pissed off one, and the last one's like, "Hey, it's me again." Like really light voice. I just wanted to say I didn't mean that.
If anyone's seen the movie Swingers, John Favreau.
Fabio.
No, it's from another movie. But John Favreau does the same thing in the beginning of it. He's like leaving a message, and the voice is back when you had like answering machines, and the answering machine kept cutting off. So he's like, "Hey, I had a really good time and all that stuff," and he's like talking and all that stuff, and it's like beep, and it's like, God damn it! He starts getting upset. Hey, your machine cut me off and all that stuff, and blah, beep, fuck. And he just goes on, and eventually, she finally picks up the phone. And she's like, "Never call me again." Great scene.
Yeah.
Swingers, John Favreau.
Yeah.
Vince Vaughn.
I do remember that. Yeah. No, I don't know. I guess what it gets down to for me with like shooting it straight, I just wish like there's moments in my life, and I'm sure everyone has always had like they have these moments as well where it's just they wish that either that barrier or something wouldn't be there to where they just were able to have their voice heard, or whether to have like the person that they want to give them the truth will give them the truth.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you do want someone to shoot them straight, but again, what we talked about already is that sometimes people don't know what to say, or they don't feel comfortable saying it.
Yeah.
So
But can't you just say, like, I'm not comfortable saying this?
One would think, but obviously people lack communication skills.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we talked about it, what was that? The What the Fuck Is Your Problem episode. It was, like everyone's fucking offended all the time. So it's like they don't want, like, they're worried that they're going to offend you. They're worried they're going to hurt your feelings. And sometimes that will make a bigger or a smaller problem larger because they are not communicating about the task at hand. And
also, it doesn't help about, like, your persona and your demeanor.
Mine or the person?
Yours. When I'm talking about, like, you.
Explain that.
So what I mean is
let's dive
and
into
I used
that
to, I think I have this problem too sometimes. So, like, I'll give you this example. So when I was a lifeguard, and
see that.
in high school,
Are we talking like 90s Baywatch or like Dwayne The Rock Johnson Baywatch?
I like David Hasselhoff. Can I go
Or
with
like
him?
Wendy Peppercorn.
No.
Sandlot reference.
No, so I was a lifeguard for like 2 years, and I got pulled in because it was said that I was mean to a family's child, right? But backstory is that this family's always they don't pay to come in. Like, they had like a relationship with the owners. They were, they would never really pay back like what they owed to the pool. It was very, I mean, I don't know what kind of situation you would call that, but and so anyways, I yelled at their kid because they thought that like they could just do whatever they wanted. And it was like a younger, like 10, in between 10 and 13, right? And so we had a rule right at the pool that if you were under 13 years old, you had to at least take a test where you swim the full length of the pool, and then you would swim back. And it would, it was done during break, but that would allow you to be in the deep end and to jump off the diving boards and blah, blah, blah. Well, anyways, so they did that. They didn't do the test. They just did it. And so I like whistled them to get out of the pool. They started arguing with me, and I ended up just like I just like blew the whistle dead and told like everyone to get out of the pool. because if they're not like abiding, but I mean that was kind of the rules that were set at that point, and so I got pulled in like the next day about this, and then it like brought up like this weird perspective that I was mean to kids, and then I blew the whistle.
How old were you at this point?
I'm like 17.
Okay.
And so like, but what it really came down to, I think, was the fact that like I was built a lot better than I am now, but I'm still like a thicker guy. I have not a deep voice as Steve, but I have the persona of very strict, very stern, blah blah blah. And I think that with you, when you're talking to someone, I think that's the same thing. With the you have a bald head, you're muscular, you look good, like you have a very deep voice. So I mean, you have to know. Like he's shaking his head, like you have to look at these things. Like so, like that's one of the. Yeah, I mean it's Rob's shaking his head, but it is true. So like I think like when I analyzed that situation, I brought that was me shooting it straight. I said, so is this to my boss at the time? Like obviously it's not like a huge job, but at the time I said, does this have to just do with the fact that like I'm muscular, like I look big, like what is this? And so like I wanted to talk to the parents directly. And they wouldn't let me.
No, of course not.
And so what it ended up being is like throughout the next week or so, it was a very eerie like feeling throughout the pool, blah, blah, blah. And it just like I got my hours cut and everything like that. And so I just ended up like saying like I'm not doing this anymore. Like I'm not going to subject myself to just I don't know.
No, I think
like a standard that I don't think is. I know what I did that was constructive to the rules of the pool. I didn't do it in a mean way. I did it respectfully to the kid, but because I'm not able to ask the parents so they can shoot it straight to me, it resulted in a situation that I felt uncomfortable because no one wanted me to be there.
Well, not no one. I mean, basically, that point.
But that's besides the point. I'm talking about
like you know what I mean. It's like what were you talking about? Like you brought it up about me. Like,
I'm talking about the demeanor. I'm talking about like you have a stern look. You have a stern, strict face.
I mean,
but we can't help that. But what I'm saying is like when you're saying that to someone, like people like us have to sometimes dial it down when we are shooting it straight.
Absolutely. So like when
respectfully
when I got.
It's a damn shame, but yeah.
When I got basically really kicked hard in the nuts with puberty and my voice dropped, even then it was like with the insecurities, it was like I would purposely speak not higher, like really higher pitch, but I would like really dial it back because I didn't know how to handle it. And I'll say even like during the day, there's times where like when I'm talking to certain people, when I'm doing the retail side of things, there is a lot more of upward inflection when I'm talking to customers because that's just how that's how anyone does it, but sometimes it's a little bit more dramatic when you have a deep voice. Same
more
thing
like,
with your face.
Yeah, not oh yeah.
No, I mean, that's just how you speak. I mean, you don't want to like I don't speak
like
to customers. I don't ask questions like I'm speaking
guy.
right now. Yeah, I get it. I'm just saying I don't ask questions to be like, what would you like today? Like I don't just like come out with it and just be like, eyebrows down. I mean, body language, just kind of confrontational, and then also like really direct and low voice, and be like, "What are you smoking?" Or like,
because if you tell me the wrong answer, I'm going to kick your ass.
No, it's a difference of like saying, like what's going on, versus like, what's going on.
Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely ways you can do that. I don't know, man. I think that when it comes down to your example, it's one of those things that you were basically...
You recognize that in yourself. I'll ask that to the demeanor point.
I would say that it's I value that. Now I'm constantly just like anyone else. I think there's always your work in progress. And if you say you're not a work in progress, you're not learning anymore. You are absolutely selling yourself short. You're not getting the most you can out of your interactions during the day. Now sometimes you don't want to sacrifice who you are. So I get it to a point, but most of the time, I would say I get more positive interactions from my interactions with other people. I mean, I don't think that I'm always like that. Now, on the podcast, I think sometimes, we talked about this a long time ago, is that when you're putting this out here, there's times where we have a lighter subject. This is not a heavy subject, but, there's times where you're trying to get a point across. So we have a podcast coming up next week, which I like. It's going to be Angelo and AJ again on. It's about being on stage or being in front of people. So Angelo's a performer. Angelo is a performer. AJ has to be in front of people to sell his products. I've done several public speaking things. I've been a part of Toastmasters. I had to speak in front of companies and all that stuff. And every day you're addressing people. Did
you guys just figure this out today, or what?
It's on the calendar.
Oh.
Maybe not the subject, but it was something that they're locked in for next week. But it's one of those things that. I would say, depending on your audience, is that and that's something that I'm constantly working on as well, is that you have to change your demeanor. So sometimes it comes across, and there's that same thing when it comes to shooting it straight, is that, when you're talking about cigars, you're talking about whiskey, it's like I can have a conversation with someone that's right in front of me, like, what do you think? And I'm like, I'm getting these notes or all this stuff, like, do you like it? And it's like, nah, it's not my favorite or anything like that, but there's no one has anything, unless they spent way too much money on that bottle, and you're like, yeah, I'm not a big fan, and you're worried about offending them, so you're saying, like, no, it's good, but in your mind, you're like, no, it's terrible.
Yeah.
How much you pay for this? $120? Like, ugh.
Yeah.
I hope you like it. Yeah. But I think it's just the audience at hand that and so am I aware of it? Yes, I'd say I'm aware of it, but at the same time, I'm constantly working on, for myself, and I encourage everyone else, that you work on how you present yourself. And when you're shooting it straight, that goes back to what I was saying earlier, if like when it comes to when people ask your opinion of something, and they're asking you, or if you have your in a negative situation like you were talking about, is earlier on, is that it's not necessarily about sugarcoating it or being passive aggressive or being passive about the topic. I think it's simply that you need to take everything in consideration. Rob said something earlier about knowing how you feel about it first. I think that's something that people skip over a lot of the times if they are 100% on the I'm going to tell you how I feel all the time, and I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's not right. I guess I'll say what bugs me is that I just think that originally my thought with the topic is like the value. Like, I want to bring it back to that because there is value in shooting it straight. But when it comes to a point like what you're explaining, Steve, is where, like you're always shooting it straight and you're always stern, like that's not right either. I just mean that the value in shooting it straight is it allows people, whether if there are problems that have arisen, it allows people to be honest with each other, and I think that in the end will build a bigger bond with relationships. I think that's the value. I don't think that it's or it will end something that wasn't supposed to be sugar-coated in the first place. Like, It's just a very black and white thing. Now, like we've talked about, like business, there's borders there's legal borders there, and stuff like that. I get that, but like most of the time when you're just speaking to someone in general, at least when you're shooting it straight and being honest with another, whether it's the way you feel or whether say it's like it is a good thing, and like you like someone and you don't know if they like them, like would you rather just not let them know, or would you want to let them know?
So when I hear you saying shooting it straight, I look at it as they're like, yes, for example, if you don't say anything at all, that's just a lack of communication and you're not expressing yourself at all. When you bring up the business side, when you bring up a negative situation, like you have to have tact in any of these scenarios. So shooting it straight, just flat out, that's, I guess, where we're not necessarily missing, but it's something that we're not really addressing, is that when you're shooting people straight, you can tell them your honest opinion. If you are passive aggressive and then at the end of the conversation you hope they got it and you did have a point to prove or point to make, not prove, point to make, then that's annoying as shit. I think you need to shoot that person straight.
But what if it's a good thing? Like what I was said, like about a relationship. Like what if you're scared to
Yeah, again, if you it's same thing, like not necessarily being the passive side of it, but being passive about it is not necessarily telling them that you like that person, but you're just trying to be around that person. I'm trying to like think back to my adolescent years where it's and I fucking hate dating. I fucking hate dating. It's just it's the worst. Does anyone agree? Anyone disagree? I mean, anyone out there? I'm sure you like dating.
I like it.
Says the relationship guy.
No, I just like it.
I just think that putting yourself out there is very difficult for a lot of people.
It's fun falling in love.
That's okay. Falling in love and dating is related, but they are not the same
But
thing.
I like no. Even if you're not dating, I like meeting new people and like
How
learning
long
about
have
them.
you've been with Alicia for 5 years?
Yeah,
All right. How strong was Tinder and Bumble at that point?
I've never been on Tinder or Bumble.
All right. So, and I'm not saying I'm going to say other people out there right now. I'm not going to say I don't like. If you had to deal with that, I hope you never have to deal with dating again. But yeah, people that are dating right now, it's a fucking war zone. And it is consuming you because it's not even the fact that like you hope someone introduces you to someone. It's not even that you have to like go out and do something. It's literally you can sit in front of your TV in your fucking boxers eating potato chips and looking at girls. And like I've seen like those memes and stuff like that. It's like some like just like super overweight, like messy hair, chips all over their chest, and it's just like, yeah, I don't like the way her hips look. Swipe. It's like, really? It's just it's.
There's a bigger issue there than what we're talking about.
So shooting someone straight. I think that having the balls to say what you mean and what you feel is one thing. And I think it's the beginning of it. I also think that you have to have tact when you're trying to not necessarily deal with that other person not buying into like there's no manipulation necessarily, but it's like if you want to get your point across, you need to address the fact that shooting someone straight is not necessarily just how you feel inside. It's also about trying to gather information and have tact of getting across how you feel to that other person so that it is a clear communication as opposed to just telling them how it is or telling them how you feel. It's also trying to at least have a little bit of knowledge of how they may respond or what you think they might. If you are completely clueless and you want to take a swing for the fences, go do that because it is absolutely better. Minus rejection fucking sucks, but rejection is better than you not taking that shot if you want to like go with the whole sports metaphor.
I'll feel better.
You'll feel You'll feel like shit if you get rejected. I mean, but long term, you hope that you learn from it. Absolutely. So there is value on both sides of it.
Yeah, I get it. I don't know. I'm not very tactical in life, so I guess that's my issue. I mean, I think things through, but most of the time when it comes to like friends, family, I just kind of say it. Now, if it's someone like Steve, for instance, with business, like it took a while, like when we were having our issues with the podcast, for me to just say it. So I think that was like one thing that I had to learn about myself, and I think that I'm better for it. Now, that just proved my point about myself and saying that I should have just shot you straight before.
Yeah.
So it's like I would rather live my life like that and be able to tell people my feelings in a like I keep saying, like a respectful, admirable manner than keeping things bellied up. And like with Alicia, I try to be as honest as I am as honest as I can be. But with her, she's one of those people that has to process a little bit more than me, and I respect that. So, but how did we arrive at that point? We talked about it and we're honest with each other. Because when we would get in arguments and I would say this and she wouldn't say anything, I would get more irritated because I felt that she was just like blowing me off. But she wasn't. She was actually thinking about it. But I had to make her so mad for her to just say that. I had to literally piss her off beyond belief so that she could just say, give me a second, or give me a day, give me a second to process this. Like, I'm not saying that's the right way. No, that's just an example of what can happen and will happen if you don't understand your audience, if you're not understanding
Yeah,
the
that's the
value
tact.
of your feelings, the value of the other person's feelings.
So that's the difference between, like, you're talking about the relationship side of it, and again, we go back to, like, I'm trying to bring it back to bourbon and cigars a little bit, but it's the same thing. If you value that other person's opinion,
Play
right?
on words is literally
No,
just
no, I'm not talking about, like, taking
Already.
it, shooting it straight. I'm literally saying, like, when people are tuning in now and they're like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? They're talking about relationships, they're talking about this. It's like, that's the format of the podcast. We already hit the cigars, we already hit the whiskeys. We're also still smoking and drinking.
there's a lot less important things to listen to than this, and people still listen to it. So.
No, I'm not making it light or anything like that. But I think that that's the tact. Like, do you want to just like go? Do you want to go for the jugular and just fucking just like, however they react, I'm gonna go and just say, and I'm gonna piss her off so that hopefully she responds in this way.
That was a tactic to your example, because I know how she is.
That's the short term, right? That's let's do it. It's effective. We're going to do that. Now, next time around, let me try to soften a little bit. Like, what other methods can I try if that person that you're talking to has difficulty getting it across, and you know that, and they finally gave you a little bit, like, hey, I just need a little bit of time. That's the next time. You might piss them off in a different way and be like, I know you probably might need a little bit of time to deal with this, and let's talk tomorrow. You know what I mean? Let's not go to bed angry. Let's not, let's not part ways in this meeting that we're never going to talk again. So this business will never get done. Let's regroup. Let's regroup tomorrow. Let's regroup in a couple days, whatever it is. Like, not about taking space. I'm not sure. Let's just regroup. You know what I mean? And then you try to, as time, you said it yourself, as time goes on, hopefully you start realizing what makes more sense, what is more effective on both parties. That's the tact. That's that mutual respect that you might want to, instead of going straight for the jugular and shooting it straight. And there's value of that, especially if you don't care about the outcome. It's like buying a car.
That's a lot easier when you don't care about the outcome.
Yeah, it is. But a lot of times people say that, but they actually do care about the outcome, and they want it to be an outcome of what they want.
Right.
And so then they're pissed off about the fact that I gave it my all, and I swung for the fences, and I said what I said, and shit, it didn't go the way I wanted it to.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I say, like I just have you like figured out that that's one thing about me, Steve, is that like the things that may not be the smartest things to do, or the things that may end the way that I don't want them to, I'd rather it be more admirable and more respective than that. Like, does that make sense?
I definitely.
I don't think it's the right or wrong way to do it. I just like it makes me feel better as a person, and I think that it would make a lot more people feel better.
Well, I think
in
that's
their own skin.
I think that's the balance we talk about a lot, and this is again the embodiment of like a cigar shop, right? Or guys hanging out, and girls hanging out, smoking cigars, drinking whiskey, and all that stuff. Is that before you get too drunk or it's too late in the evening? I mean, then it all shifts sometimes for the better or worse. But yeah, the thing is that when you are shooting people straight, if you don't do those things of the balance of just doing it and telling that person, and just again swinging for the fences, or just taking that shot. If it's a wild shot and you like don't realize where you are on the court or whatever it might be, you're probably going to miss. And that's the growth part of it. Is like that's where the tact comes in. That's where the observational skills. It's like, how can I tell that other party, no matter what the arena, let's go back to business, take emotion out of it. I can do all this stuff, but at the same time, I'm going to what is important to them, so that I can tell them exactly how I feel. I'm not going to misrepresent myself or dance around the issue. I'm going to be straightforward. And if it doesn't work out, hey, we tried and we don't see eye to eye, that's fine. But I also want to know how you're feeling, or what you value, what's important. And then when I take that shot, it's not the fact that I'm taking that shot with my eyes closed. It's the fact that I have placed myself and hopefully been able to position the actual shot itself or shooting it straight and saying what you're going to say so that it actually falls on a little more receptive ears as opposed to just seeing what's important for you. And that's just communication in a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Like you if all you're doing is valuing the fact that I want to get across what I want to say, then all of a sudden that's a monologue. It's not a dialogue, and that's not shooting it straight. Shooting it straight is actually, here's what I'm saying. This is how I feel. This is what I want. This is what is important to me. And if you don't, take it or leave it.
Right.
Most of the time, and I think it's probably a rare occurrence that they're going to be like, you know what, we'll take it. No, because you're not addressing what's important to that other party. You're addressing what's important to you.
Right.
And unless you are in the position of the person that is here, you're on the other side. You're on the other side of the desk. You're on the other side of the table. The other side of the conversation, and they're saying it to you. You would like them to do the same thing because you want to feel like you're important. You want to hear them shoot it straight, but at the same time, it's supposed to actually bring in something that's important to them or important to you if you're on the other side of
or
it.
Both of you.
And that's the best part. So if you're
I'm
shooting it straight, that's where you get that.
That's what I'm trying to say is like these things, these actions about shooting it straight, I think I'll give you like 85% of the time will it result in a better relationship regardless. But
you said that was I don't think you said weakness. You said it was like a shortcoming that you deal with.
Yeah, that's true. And so like I'll take it back to the example of like my football coaches in college. Like just because like they didn't like the fact that I remembered exactly what they told me and I held them accountable because it's not supposed to be like that, right? It's not supposed to be like...
It's not the way they want it.
That's
the way it should be. But
they don't want it that way, but that's the way it should be, and I am a full believer of that. So I went in there respectfully, admirably, and said, you said this, and you're not honoring... It's not like a deal, I get that, but you're not honoring your own word, and you're not explaining to me in a valuable manner, I think, as to why it has become that... I'm not playing due to what you said before. But so what it ended up being is that, yeah, for a year it sucked with my coaches. But I'll tell you this, the end of my junior year and into my senior year, we both had the utmost respect for each other because we knew where each other stood.
Yeah, that's open communication. I agree. But at the time, you were absolutely pissed off, right?
Yeah, I was pissed off, but I didn't go in there like guns blazing.
No,
but I'm saying, like, if you hold, like, if someone says, and you value their word, they value their own word, and they're above you in any sense of any manner, and you hold them accountable, like, obviously nobody likes that, but you either have to deal with the consequences if you want to get that off your chest, like, you could say that and lose your job. I could have said that, and they could have kicked me off the team.
Well, and that's where I think it comes into... Oh, go ahead.
Well, but I knew that I had been a part of that situation before in an earlier instance in middle school, high school, and I think that in that arena, it's like what you said, Steve, like knowing your audience, we talk about that a lot, where I thought I knew those coaches, and even though that I may have pissed them off by honoring their own word and holding them accountable like they taught me, I think that's valuable, and it ended up making our relationship a lot better as player and coach.
Sure, yeah. But, I mean, right now, you're 24 years old. If you have a 13-year-old trying to hold you accountable and say, no, you said this, and you already have your bigger game plan because you're the leader at that point, again, I mean, are you going to, like, tell a 13-year-old kid that's in middle school is like, yeah, no, I know I told you that, but, things went differently. Like, I don't know what to... Like, that's the tact on the other side. Can they shoot you straight? It's like, no, I did tell you that, and things have changed.
Yeah, but you tell me why. Like what you say. Like
you ask them to tell you why. You can't tell them to tell you why. I mean, that's it. I mean, again, it's all about communication. I like the subject of shooting it straight, shooting people straight. It's you have to be prepared for the consequences, and if you want to, like I'll reiterate, if you want to get the best out of your side of it and hopefully their side of it and open the lines of communication, you ask the right questions. You don't just tell them. You ask the right questions, and you try to – it's just like anything else when it comes down to any conversation. You ask open-ended questions as opposed to closed questions.
Right.
You don't want yes or no. You want open-ended questions. You try to understand. And it's not necessarily a tactic of trying to necessarily like catch them in their own lie or their mistake. It's simply the fact that you want to understand, and also, yeah, you were told a certain thing, so I'm going to tell you how I feel.
Yeah.
But then again, if you tell them how you feel and they're like, yeah, no, I get how you feel. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. You're still not playing. We're still breaking up. You're still fired. You're demoted.
That's fine, but I would still like to know. Like you're going to disagree with it, but I think that like people still owe an explanation. Like if there's not like
I think no one owes anyone anything. I think that I think they should. I think that like you go back to value, you go back to liking, you go back to owing. I don't think it's necessary. I think morally, I think it's great if people do that. However, if they don't, then they don't owe you anything.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a negative thing. It's just, again, I think it goes back to people, their agendas, and I think it goes back to their lack of communication skills. We had a whole podcast about communication, and I think this comes down to it, is shooting people straight is so much better, and that's where when you brought up this topic, and I appreciate it, I think it's a great topic, I heard, shooting it straight or telling it like it is how I translate it in my head, versus being passive or dancing around the issue, as opposed to avoiding the issue.
Well, because that's the exact opposite.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind.
I think a lot of people do.
I think it's very common because people don't know how to communicate, and they don't like confrontation. People don't like confrontation.
Right. It results in more lies. It results in more dysfunction within the business, within the relationship. I think it's like bullshit. So that's why like I just will always stand by the more respectful, like admirable notion of the fact that like, I mean, no, it's probably not going to happen. But I still believe, and I will always believe, that like people should honor their word no matter how high you are in a business or organization or relationship.
Honor their word to what point, I guess, is the question. So if things have changed and if they misspoke or if they were being passive aggressive, and they already have someone else filling that position, or they say,
don't you say most of the time, like when they don't honor the word, that they are passive aggressive, anyways?
I mean, sometimes I think it is something that where the person didn't know what to say. So yeah, you go back to personal relationship.
And they didn't process it, and they just fucking said.
No,
something?
they're avoiding the conversation. They're avoiding the rejection. They don't want to hurt someone's feelings. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know what? I am. Someday we're going to be together forever. And it's like, yeah, it didn't work out. Well, you told me that we were going to be together forever.
Yeah.
So that's honoring their word. And it's
Touché.
like, no, that's a terrible situation.
Touché. I like that. Okay.
I mean, when you go back to the a man or a person is only as good as their word, I think that's great. Things can change, though.
Yeah, but when you don't explain why, like you're not worth anything. Like it just like
no. See, and that's a statement.
It sucks.
You're not worth anything.
Well, you're not worth your word. You're not worth anything that you say.
Then you're better off, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah.
You're better off. You can't dwell on it. You move on.
Yep. All right. See you, Rob.
Rob, we'll see you on August 14th. Thanks for being a part of the audience.
Good seeing you, man.
Absolutely.
Be safe going home. Well,
shoot it straight.
Getting into our 2-hour mark, pretty close on our live.
Yeah.
What are you ready to get into closing remarks, or is there anything else?
Sure. Yeah, I want to also I'm still on that LFD. I mean, I think with the new setup too, and only being the two of us, I think we obviously been talking more. So I still am enjoying this Reserva Especial. I've seen our view count; it's been pretty strong. I don't know if people are hanging out longer; they're tuning in and out. But I think our view count on the Facebook Live is definitely strong. So if you guys are still listening, share it, give us a review. That's all that good stuff. I hope you guys like the new audio equipment. We're going to work out the kinks and everything like that. But
I did notice that we don't have anything but a 5-star review, folks.
It's great
on iTunes, Spotify, Facebook. Everything's 5 stars, and we appreciate all of the written reviews as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
It's always fun. That was one thing I liked about Dino's podcast.
What's that?
The fact that they kind of did a review at every episode.
Yeah, I've been doing that with Tinderbox. I've been doing Feedback Friday, which I love. We don't have enough to do Feedback Friday because we'd run out in like 3 weeks, but
yeah,
we need more of that. That'd be great.
No, it's
share the word.
So we appreciate it. No, do you want me to go with
Sure.
closing remarks?
Yeah, it's up to you.
Well, I don't know. I feel like I've pretty much said anything, and I don't really have much. And I know that's not good for a podcast, but that's if I just said the same shit that I've been saying, then it's just reiterating. I don't want to do that.
Well, sometimes summary. I mean, that's the conclusion paragraph of a paper. You want me to go first? See if you come up with anything else.
Sure.
All right. So, I again love the cigar. This concoction of different whiskeys together, I think, especially off the rip, it was good. As I take another sip of it, it's good. I mean, it's not. I mean, I don't know how you market this, but I mean, with all the different bourbons and whiskeys out there, I would say this is one that they literally could blend together and say this is a blended whiskey, and it would sell. I'd put it at the $25-$30 mark. I think it'd be justified, not only in cost, but I think it would be something that people would get. Like, it's pretty good. It's an everyday drinker.
Yeah, no, it is an everyday drinker, and I think that's what. I mean, that's the cool thing about the whole blending thing, and that's why the trend's kind of taken off, because people are trying to create their own different experience. Because like the bourbon geeks out there, they already tasted everything, so they're trying to mix around a bunch of different stuff, things that they think that would blend well together, things that there may be bottles out there that they think's missing something that is in another whiskey, that they can complement each other but also make them both special together. And I think that's what I was trying to go for this. I think that this would be a cool blend for an experienced whiskey lover, and that wants to try something different if you haven't already tried it. If you're trying to find something that's smooth up front, or it's something that you could blend for guests and just have it in a decanter that's in your house for when people come over, and tell them that, hey, when you're sipping this, like, it's really smooth, and then they may not like the spice that comes off at the end there, but you're saying that that's what you should expect from other bourbons or other whiskeys that you may get into down the road, because it's getting that spice, getting the oakiness, getting the vanilla, stuff like that. So I think it's one of those ones that if you're trying to expand your palate, like, this is a cool blend that you would try. And again, it's just regular Heaven Hill, 40 proof, and it's 2 parts Heaven Hill and 1 part Wild Turkey.
I think it's ironic that with the subject of shooting it straight, you made up your own new whiskey. Like, there's nothing straightforward about this other than you gave away the recipe. But it's like, you know what? Everything in bottles, I'm just going to go off script and just combine shit.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah. What do you think about you like the topic, but what?
I like the topic. I think, so shooting it straight, I'll close it out. If you have anything to add to this or anything like that, that'd be great. I think, and I will reiterate, I'll conclude it with a quick summary and try to highlight a couple points. What I learned today, from talking with you and having the audience of Facebook and everything else, and having Dustin and Nate in the garage, and Rob from Rocky Patel is in the garage. So I hope that people want to join us, studio audience. We got so much room here, but we like to squeeze people in here. I just, shooting it straight, you have to have the finesse of dealing with what you want to get across. The audience is a big part of it, and I'm looking forward to the conversation next week with Angelo and AJ about being in front of someone, because with like Angelo performing his music, he's gonna not only play what he wants to play. I'm interested to hear what he has to say, but he's gonna play his stuff, and sometimes it's not gonna be the right venue or the right audience, and they're not gonna enjoy it, and they may not give him positive feedback or anything like that. But at least he got, he went up there and he did it, and he gave it his all, and he was straightforward with it. The same thing with communication. I can see the value of not only shooting it straight, and if you need to take that swing, just do it. If you're trying, like you said, in the dating world, if you want to express what you're trying to get across to that person, and you might as well, it's better to say it as opposed to not say it. absolutely agree. If there's no more options and you need to express what you want to get across, then I would say then do it. But be prepared for the consequences. If you're trying to and you want a certain outcome, but you also want to express yourself, then I would encourage you to make sure that you really study that audience and that you are trying to effectively communicate your point, shooting it straight, to the type of person that they are, that they're going to actually listen to that. That they're actually going to hear it. They're not just going to hear you talking and then think about what they want to say. I think you want to actually get that point across, so the fact that the words that you choose while you are shooting it straight is not just what you want to say, but what you want them to hear so that they get the message. That's a big part of it, is that not just saying the words and realizing what you want with you, like you keep bringing it up, Jake, that you want the value and the respect and the honoring people's words and stuff like that. Make sure you're choosing the right words. It's not about what you've been told all the time. It's about the fact that what are you saying?
Yeah.
And are they going to actually relate to it, or are they just going to look at you and say, like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it's completely off base because you're not addressing anything that we just talked about or anything that's – you're only concerned with your feelings and not mine. So now there's a bigger wall there. If you know what's important to that person, if you actually ask the right questions, if you have the right conversations, if you have the right open communication, that's when you can actually have an effective statement or effective shooting it straight of what you want to get across. Because when you do that and you know what they relate to or what's important to them, you will choose your words to address the points that are important to them that are also addressing what's important to you. Now it's up to them, and now you have to be prepared for how they react or they respond, whether or not you like it or not. And hopefully it's not just I say this, you say this, and we're done. It's an actual conversation. Yeah. But you were actually honest. That's the biggest thing, because the whole passive-aggressive or the passive conversation, that's probably the most frustrating part, and that's why I like the whole shooting it straight thing, is because you are not dancing around the issue. You're not avoiding what you really want to say and hoping that they get it. You're actually saying what you want to say in respect to what is important to them, so that at that point you've expressed yourself, you've gotten it out there, and that they get the biggest percentage of what you're saying without shutting it down way too early, because all you're doing is valuing what is important to you.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like it. Kylie says, I think understanding how to shoot it straight is just as important as knowing how to receive it straight. If you want to give your honesty, it's important to learn how to hear others to be honest. I think that both have to be learned, which is kind of what you just said, Steve. So I think that's a great way to end it. I'm sorry I don't have much. I don't know. I'm not one of those people to reiterate just because I think that's, I don't know. That's how I am. So it's fine. I do, however, I think that everything that you said, Steve, is correct, and I think people should try.
I think you had a lot of good points too. Actually, I mean, I think it's fantastic. It was a good conversation.
Yeah,
I hope you guys all enjoyed it at home.
I think that the value in this topic, with the value in shooting it straight, is that some people struggle with being honest. So I would urge the people out there with issues or if how they're feeling, like, take the tactical route and understand your audience or who you feel about, and I would try to explain to them either how you feel or what you're feeling if you're dealing with a situation like that, or whether there's problems or issues that arise through your day-to-day. Think about this podcast and say, well, am I going to be passive-aggressive, or am I going to think about this and come up with something or a statement or a question to make this issue resolved for myself and the other party?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, so I do want to thank, we want to thank Spencer very, very much, and Altadis, and the fact that we have these mics. Thank you, Nate, and his church.
Yeah, for the mixer board that we're using right now, we're going to be expanding that as well, so that we don't need to be holding on to their spare mixer. But
yes.
Thank you, Nate, for reaching out. And I know that we all did research, and I know that Jake and I talked a lot about it, and Nate and I definitely communicated about trying to figure this whole rigged up system And I hope you guys enjoyed it. We were looking for feedback on all that too as well, because we want to get better at putting out a better product, not only the content, but a better way to convey that content so you guys enjoy actually listening to it without having to like turn your volume up. Or Kylie's been on a long time here, and when we used to open the garage at the old place, and she's listening on our headphones, and she lost her hearing for like 2 days, I think it was.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you, Altadis, for providing the Romeo and Julieta Reserve.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to smoking that.
Here's me shooting it straight. These are not consistent for me in construction.
Interesting.
Yeah, but this is a great one.
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Medium body. I think these two cigars were alike in flavor. I think this has a little bit more of a creaminess essence to it. I think it was missing. I think it was the creaminess that the LFD was missing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to smoking it again. I like the Reserve. We did that with, I think it was an Alec Bradley way back. I remember that picture on the O2 DeVille hood a while back. If you guys are listening to old episodes.
Market.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was a really good one. So I'm going to try that with this blend next. We're going to try that with this blend next.
Yeah, so next week, guys, I think it's next week. We do have, I mentioned before, AJ and Angelo. I think it's going to be a great conversation with all four of us on.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it. Guys, give us some feedback. Let's enjoy the rest of our Whiskey Wednesday. Thank you for tuning in.
Yes, thank you, everyone. This is the Bourbon and BS Podcast, episode 77. Jake Sanders, Steve Crane, thank you.
Cheers.
Empty glass.